What's going on, Silver Stackers? It's the Silver State Stacker here, and today we're going to go over some information that I think is going to be quite surprising to you. So silver really gets a bad rap when you compare it to gold, and I don't know why so many people are so doggish on silver when compared to gold, because we're going to go over some numbers here that I think are going to be pretty surprising to you. And I think if you held gold and silver during that time span going back to 2019, I think you're going to be pretty happy with both. And we're also going to talk about what silver and gold are not. So you guys hang in there and let's just dive right into this. So if we go back to 2019, you have gold that peaked in September at $1,526 per ounce. Now, you also have silver during that same time, going back to September 2019, peaked out at $18.31 per ounce. Now, if you go to today's numbers, gold finished off the week at $3,311.67 per ounce. And today, silver finished off at $36.04 per ounce. And I do have to say, over the last week, silver has been on an absolute rampage. If we go back to last week, we had prices finishing off the week at right around $34.50. So over the last week, silver has gone up about $1.50, which is really a big move in such a short period of time for silver. So we don't know what we're going to see going forward. I do believe that over time, given the current economic state of the U.S. with now over $37 trillion worth of debt, and the U.S. is now spending more money on the interest rate on the debt than we're actually spending on our military budget. So that's pretty alarming, and I do think that over time, we're going to see both metals are just going to continue to go up in value. Now, it's not really that the metal itself is going up in value. What's really going on is that the dollar is moving down against the asset. So silver and gold are what they've been for over 5,000 years. And what we have in the U.S. is a fiat currency. Ever since we have decoupled the dollar from gold and silver, the dollar has continued to devalue consistently every year against gold and silver. So we've got a big problem and we've got a big mess on our hands here. And the fiat dollar is just going to continue losing value. Now, the opposite also happens as well. So if the fiat dollar was to gain in value, then that would also move against the price of gold and silver as well. So let's take a deeper look at these numbers. So back in 2019, like I said, we had gold peaking at $1,526 per ounce. If you were to sell that gold today, you would have gotten $3,311.66 per ounce. Now, I mean, your return on that is going to be roughly about $1,785. So you did a little bit more than double your return on investment in that amount of time. And that's about a 117% increase in price, which is absolutely amazing. Now, if you were to look at the same numbers in silver, going back September 2019, when silver was $18.31 per ounce, today we finished off again, like I said, at $36.04 per ounce. If you were to take that same amount that you purchased back in 2019 on that gold coin, which was $1,526, and you were to have purchased silver as well, then it would have gotten you about 83 ounces, really about 83 and a half ounces of silver at that time. And if you were to sell all of those 83 ounces at today's value, $36.04, it would have gotten you about $3,005.14. So your return on that investment, get this, was $1,478.59. And that is a whopping 96%, almost a 97% return on your investment. So if you did purchase at that time, that would have been an almost double of your return on investment, which is absolutely fantastic. So you got gold going back to September, and silver going back to the September peaks of 2019, gold had a 117% return. You would have gained $1,785 profit, and silver had a 96.9% return, almost 97%, and that would have been a $1,478 profit. So gold absolutely wins, no doubt about that, but both investments would have pretty much doubled in value, gold a little bit more, silver slightly less, proving that 2019 would have been a great time to buy. And it just goes to show you that it's really time vested. You're not going to buy silver and gold and really make a quick return on your investment. If you save over maybe a decade or 5, 6, 7, 8 years or longer, that's when you're going to see the power of these metals. You guys let me know what you think down in the comments below. I mean, why is everybody so doggish on silver when clearly the numbers speak for themselves? Now, what we're going to talk about now is what silver and gold are not. So you're probably not going to get rich off of these metals, because really what they do, and going back throughout history, is they preserve your purchase power. So I'm going to use some examples here. If you were to have gotten, let's say, silver at its price peak going back in 2019, again, it was $18.31 per ounce, and today we ended at $36.04 an ounce. Let's say that you had 1,000 ounces of silver in 2019, you would have paid roughly $18,310 for that 1,000 ounces back then. Now, basically, you would have been able to get a pretty nice economic car like a Toyota Corolla or maybe a Honda Civic back then. Oh, I mean, $20,000 for a car seems so cheap when you compare it to today's prices. Now, $18,000 back then also would have been a pretty decent down payment on a modest home. And this also would have gotten you 6 months to a year of rent in most cities here in the US. Now, if you fast forward to today, and you were to have that same $1,000 of ounces in silver, then that would cost you $36,040. Again, that's applying that 96.8% increase. What that would have gotten you today is basically the same thing. You would have gotten a nice Tesla Model 3 or maybe a nice luxury sedan for that $36,000. And it would have been the same. It would have been a decent down payment on a small home in most areas in the US. It would cover roughly about a year of rent in most places. So you can see how silver really isn't something that's going to make you rich. I know when I first started stacking and started getting involved in the metals, I don't know, really to start off with, your first 100 ounces is really monumental. I see the silver stackers here on YouTube and around social media, and it just seems like they have so much. I mean, when you look at Salivate Metal, I don't know if you guys ever went back and looked at his video where he showed his full entire stack. I don't even know if that was really his full stack. I mean, it was what it was at the time, but it just was so much silver and so much gold. So I kind of thought in my mind, my long-term goal was to hit that 1,000 ounce goal. And then, I don't know, I guess I figured I would have so much money and I would be so wealthy at that time if I had that amount of money. But really, you can see how, using these examples, that if you were to purchase, 1,000 ounces back in 2019 and you fast forward to today, you're going to get roughly about the same thing. So it's not like you get rich or anything like that. It's because of how the dollar moves against the metals. What we're talking about here is inflation. Now, the big factor that came into play between 2019 and now was we're going to call it the big virus that took over the world during the 2020 era. And what happened was the government sent out massive stimulus checks to the citizens here to help cover unemployment. And you had businesses that were taking PPA loans out to be able to cover salaries and to be able to keep their employees paid so that rents and mortgages could be continued to pay during that time. So there was massive printing of money during that time. But really, if you go back even before then, if you go back to the Great Recession, quantitative easing or the printing of money has been going on since then. So it's really been accumulating snowball effect going back really over a decade. And at this point, we're $37 trillion in debt. This has caused a massive devaluation of the dollar because what used to take, I don't know, if you just look at eggs, what used to take, $1.50 or $2, you could get the most pristine, high-end eggs, organic, grass-fed, whatever you want. You could pretty much get super quality eggs during that time. And now, if you want those same eggs, they've more than doubled in price. I mean, some have maybe even close to tripled in price. And so what used to cost $1 really now is $3 or even $4 beyond that. So your silver and your gold really reflect and show you how the dollar has been devalued over time. So just for example, if you go back to when silver and gold were the standard for the dollar, they were backing the dollar. Gold at that time was $30 an ounce. So moving forward, today we're at $3,311 per ounce for gold, and the silver now is $36.04 per ounce. So it's really quite remarkable how much our currency here in the US has devalued, and I don't think that's going to stop. Look, let's talk about what's really going on. So the $37 trillion in debt is really just what the government owes right now, but that doesn't account for entitlement benefits such as Social Security. That's just the interest on our debt that we have. The entitlements are not taken into account into that number. So really, if you throw those into the picture, then you're looking at quite a bit more in debt that the U.S. really has. And here's something that you all should be aware of, is that Scott Bessent was talking about how they're going to deal with this debt. And what he said was quite alarming. They essentially played their hand at what they're going to do. So in order to tackle this debt, what they're going to do is they're going to raise the GDP against the debt, basically. So he's basically telling us that they are going to raise inflation. And the reason why they're doing this is basically, so let's take, for instance, your property. If you're a homeowner out there or you own property out there, essentially what's going to happen is they're going to start printing more money. And we are just waiting right now for the federal chairman to start dropping interest rates. It will happen. He will have to do it. What he's waiting on right now, in my perspective, is he's waiting for unemployment numbers to go up. And those, even though they are low, they are starting to tick up. And it's not necessarily about high unemployment. It's going to be watching the trends over time. So if that trend of unemployment continues to rise, then that's going to be putting more and more pressure on the federal chairman to start dropping those interest rates. Now, we already talked in the last video how the banks also need these rates to come down as well. So in the end, my personal opinion is Powell will end up dropping interest rates to save the banks. And unfortunately, the people who are going to get left with the bag are going to be just everyday Americans. And what it's going to be is the cost of living and inflation is going to rise. What used to cost, well, what's costing now $3, $4 is now going to cost, when that happens, is going to be, $6 to $8. So that's inflation at work. Now, going back to the housing, how this is going to affect your housing is it's going to force a lot of people into situations where they're going to have to sell. And those who do hang on to their property, they're going to be forced to pay higher property taxes. So here's the thing. When they start this inflation and this ball starts rolling, all asset classes are going to rise in value against the dollar. If you have a house, let's say that's $400,000, you're taxed every year based off of the value of that house. And every year, the assessor reassesses the value of the property. So if the property's value rises from $400,000 to $500,000, then your next year taxes are also going to go up. Now, here's another catch. If you sell that property and you sell that property at, let's say, $500,000 because your property has gone up in value, then you also have to pay a property tax on that as well. And guess what? The higher the value of the property, the more taxes you pay. It's a real estate property transfer tax. So the more taxes that you're going to pay on that property. So they are going to use our assets as a way to recover some of that $37 trillion in debt. And we are going to go through a period of inflation. Now, because of that, I absolutely believe that the price of silver and gold will rise over time. Now, it could be silver. When I asked AI, if you guys watched the video, and I'll put that right here, the AI basically said that we could expect a $40 to $50 silver price by mid-2026. Okay? Now, we are already at 36. Well, we hit $36.77 this week. So if that trend continues, well, we're going to blow that out of the water, the $40 to $50 by next summer. So I think maybe more of a realistic expectation could be by mid next year, a $50 to $60 valuation for silver, maybe even a $75 valuation for silver. Now that could be super aggressive, but I don't know. I do know that over time, the value of gold and silver are just going to continue to rise. Now there may be slight pullbacks every now and then because, nothing can go straight up forever. But if you go back and you look throughout history, gold and silver have continued to go up at a slow and steady pace. So that's all I got for you guys today. I just want you to know that silver and gold probably are never going to make you rich, but what they are going to do is they're going to preserve your purchasing power. And if you're in it for the long haul, then you're going to see that, what you can purchase today with, say, 1,000 ounces of silver is still going to preserve that going forward 10, 20, 30 years from now. You'll still be able to purchase that same item. The problem is that the dollar moves down over time against these metals. I know you guys have all heard the phrase that if you go back to the Roman era, an ounce of gold would purchase you a very nice suit. And if you go to today's prices, 1 ounce of gold will still buy you a really nice suit. And so that is very, very wise advice. And that just goes to show you the hedge that these assets do provide. Now, if you're looking for something that has exponential value and will actually draw you a higher return quicker, then you're probably going to need to look towards some other type of an asset. If you look at the latest Gallup poll onto, what Americans thought were the greatest assets to hold in 2024, then pretty much everybody is going to say that residential real estate or real estate in general is the number one asset, and then gold is the second favorable asset. I do think that right now, we're seeing a huge spike in housing inventory, and this is causing these home prices to come down. But if they start quantitative easing again and they start printing money like they did over the last decade, then those prices are just going to continue to go up. So again, you guys let me know what you think about the video. Am I spot on? Am I way off? Am I crazy? You guys let me know down below. Thank you all so much for watching. I absolutely enjoy getting to chat with everybody down in the comments below and hearing your opinions and your thoughts on these topics that I put out. And to all my loyal subscribers out there, thank you so much. I absolutely appreciate it. You guys are awesome. And listen, you guys stay safe out there, and I will see you in the next one.